Hello and a very warm welcome. My name's David Roth from WPP, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to Follow the Sun, 24 hours of broadcasting right across the world to celebrate the launch of the WPP BAV Best Country Study for 2021, done in conjunction with US News and the Wharton Business School. It's a pleasure to have you join us for this section. Of course, this broadcast is going to be right across the world. We're starting in Australia and New Zealand, and we'll be ending at the end of the 24-hour period in the USA. Well, we've got an absolutely packed broadcast today, and I'd like to start off by introducing Mike Sussman from BAV. Mike has been the brainchild behind the Best Country Studies for many years, and there's nobody better to put the Best Country Study into context. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, David. We're really excited about the launch of the 2021 Best Countries study. It's the most comprehensive study of the Power of Nation brands. We've been doing this for 6 years, covering countries that represent 95% of the global GDP and about 75% of the world's population. So an amazing coverage. This year, we're looking at 78 countries. We spoke to over 17,000 business decision makers, citizens, and elites around the world. And we've ranked countries on a battery of metrics, including 26 key rankings that we'll talk about throughout this report and throughout the app. One thing we've seen over time is the shifting impact of soft power. It's becoming more and more important to driving the power of a country, while hard power, like banks and tanks, as we call it, the more traditional power, is becoming less impactful on the success of a nation. When we think about the power of a nation, we think about 10 key dimensions, and you can look at each of these ranks and how a country does on these things, from entrepreneurship to cultural influence to quality of life. We've introduced 2 new ones that are becoming more and more important today in these changing dynamics of culture. One of those is how socially purposeful is a nation. And the second is how agile is a nation, how responsive it is to things, particularly during a COVID era. And both of those dimensions are extremely important in driving the GDP and the success of a nation. Agile nations are seen as 3 times more likely to be a better job market. They're rated 3.2 times more likely as being economically influential. They are more connected to the rest of the world. So agile nations are doing something to resonate with people globally. Really important to mention, and it's the biggest driver now of GDP. And that's something that the nations need to be more and more of today. So when you think about agility, the top nations around the world this year are USA, number 1 in terms of being an agile country, followed by Australia, and in 3rd place is Canada. We continue to see the rising power of purpose, not just for brands, but also for nations. In fact, purposeful nations are 57% more likely to be considered for tourism, 55% more likely to be considered as a place to do business. So it's important to be seen as a purposeful and socially responsible country. Number 1 on this purposeful dimension is Canada, followed by Denmark, and in 3rd place is New Zealand out of 78. So pretty impressive, pretty strong dimensions, very important. We also see the power and impact of brands that resonate from countries. In fact, 79.5% of citizens say that consumer brands play an important role in defining a country's culture. So there's a strong relationship between the brands and the nation. We also see that 78.6% of citizens say that the country a product is made in impacts their preference for a brand. So you can see that interplay between brand and country and how important it is today. And we started measuring the power of what does it mean to be made in a specific country. What does made in America mean, and made in China? And we can rank the power of these nations in terms of their exports. So, for instance, Germany ranks number 1 in terms of the country you'd want to buy an automobile from. They also dominate on pharmaceuticals and beer. So you can see a little bit of a balanced power of that nation. Italy is number 1 on fashion. So that's the top brand for when you're thinking about buying fashion brands. France owns cosmetics. In terms of the best countries for real estate, Canada ranks number 1, followed by the United States and then France. So overall, again, you can see how the building blocks of a nation affect its overall ranking. And we're excited to share some more details with you. Back to you, David.
Well, now it's time to get an overview of the key insights from the 2021 study on a global perspective. And who better to do that for us than Professor David Ribstein from Wharton University. Professor Ribstein has been our partner in this study since it started, and his unique understanding and unique perspective of countries, of brands, and what's driving GDP growth is unrivaled. So let's hear from David now.
Hello, I'm Dave Ribstein. I'm a marketing professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. I've been involved with the Best Country Study since its inception. This year has been a different year. It's been a transformational year. There's been many things that have affected how we view countries and how we live our particular lives. First and foremost, obviously, we've had to deal with the COVID-19 and the tragic loss of millions of lives all around the world. Accompanying this has been the huge impact on economies of various different countries, leading to an overall global recession. Some countries have handled the pandemic well, such as South Korea and Taiwan and several others, whereas other countries have not handled it nearly as well. Accompanying this pandemic has been the subsequent vaccine distribution. And this has required acquisition of vaccines as well as some form of equitable distribution of those. Perhaps Israel has been the country that has done the best at it. There are others that are catching up, but there are other countries that are still struggling today with trying to manage the vaccine distribution. A third major thing that's been happening this year has been the Black Lives movement that originated in the United States and has found it in various other countries all around the world. Climate impact has been a major event that's happened in various different countries. Perhaps the most notable are the brush fires that happened in Australia. We've seen other events, such as the explosions that happened in the Beirut port, killing millions of lives. And of course, we could not ignore Brexit and the impact that's had on the British economy, as well as the economies of Europe. Many, many events have made this year an exceptional year. And it's part of what it is that we've all had to adjust to. Perhaps the greatest impact, of course, has been the pandemic. And what we have witnessed as individuals is we see that how we buy and where we shop, that's changed. How we work, many of us working from home, some of us not having jobs. So there's been a dramatic impact for individuals, where we eat and how we interact with family and friends, dramatically affected, and we've had to adapt. Businesses have had to adapt as well. And what they have had to do is how they connect with their customers has changed. Meetings have changed. The ability to have trade shows dramatically affected. The whole supply chain has been disrupted. And certain industries, such as the hospitality industries or the airline industry, have been dramatically affected, with sporting events being canceled throughout the world. So many, many industries have suffered as a result. And when I've talked to business leaders, almost inevitably, what it is that they tell me is they've needed to be agile. And it sort of is the buzzword that I hear from companies. But that's not restricted to just individuals and companies. Countries have had to adapt as well. And what it is that we have seen is we see, obviously, trying to get the healthcare systems up to speed and handling with this medical crisis that we've got. And getting medical supplies to the hospitals and to individuals has also been an issue. But trying to cope with the unemployment levels and trying to deal with that and supporting the local governments has been a major issue for countries all around the world. And what countries have had to do they've had to adapt as well. Well, we too at the Best Country Study have had to go through our own adaptations. We've added 13 new attributes that we use for evaluating countries, and we have taken one of the previous dimensions, that of citizenship, and we have morphed it into a dimension that we call social purpose. And what is social purpose? It has many of the dimensions that we had in citizenship, but it also includes dimensions such as human rights and racial equality and social justice and climate concern, that have all been attributes that now feed into the social purpose dimension. And we've added a new dimension. And this new dimension, this new overall factor is one of course, agility. And what is it that we have feeding into agility? Our perceptions of countries in terms of their adaptability and in terms of responsiveness and how progressive they are and how modern they happen to be and how dynamic they are, all feed into this agility dimension. So with that said, let's take a look at the latest rankings that we have.
Hello from Geometry Ogilvy, Japan. My name's Gareth Ellen and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here. We're delighted to be with you today. Our plan for this session is to take you through some of the things that we're finding interesting in this market as our brands look to rebuild and rebound from what has been one of the toughest economic situations since the economic crash of 2008. We hope you find this session interesting and informative, and we appreciate that you're with us today. We have 4 great guests today. First is Ichiro Ota, who is our CEO. Second will be Sean Palmer, who is General Manager. Third up is Doug Schiff, who is our Chief Creative Officer. And finally will be one of our rising stars from the planning team, Sophiana Bishop.
Firstly, I want to touch the specific agenda for the digital transformation. I don't think Japan market is the advanced country accelerating the digital transformation in last few years. But once we have faced with the COVID-19 issues, which has specifically forced us and mandated us to accelerating the digital transformation. Before the COVID, most of the clients are still counting on the physical space to be able to engage with the consumers. But based on the pandemic, most of the clients are very much shifting to the digital and the virtual space, aiming to engage with the consumer with the new ways. That's the biggest changes. Other fundamental challenges for the most of the companies, struggling to see the business growth. Almost all the clients are keen to see the end-to-end customer, journey designing, which is not only for the brand building, but also seeing some of the specific growth and kind of acquisition or conversion through the entire customer experience journeys.
Japan has a wonderful history of innovation, and more specifically craftsmanship. This has resulted in some of the world's largest brands in retail, in automotive, even technology. And all of that accumulates in giving a huge sense of confidence around the world from the words made in Japan. However, despite that, the external reputation of Japan as a very innovative country, and some of the innovation within those brands, we're still very far from all having Pepper robots in our homes and driving around in flying cars or autonomous vehicles. And that's really down to the result of the state of digital transformation here in Japan. COVID really exposed a lot of the gaps that Japan had previously. You look at some of the Hanko approvals and paper workflows that were used even in contact tracing of the virus and the pandemic itself. The government has very quickly and understandably responded by creating a whole new agency around digitizing Japan because they saw and understood the gap, I think, versus other markets. And that's putting a lot of pressure on businesses and brands to follow suit and define their own digital transformation agendas and make sure they're set up for the business of the future. However, 95% of companies in Japan actually haven't started that journey of digital transformation for themselves. The pressures are very much here on their businesses, but they're realizing that they don't have the people, the proper processes, the technology. A lot of their business is built on old legacy systems, in some cases decades old. And as a result of finding it hard to be agile in a way that today's business is requiring them and pushing them to be, even from an operational perspective, let alone from a marketing perspective. But the benefits of an improved digital transformation and the customer experiences that those really allow is very clear to businesses. We see within some of our clients, some who were set up and had the right platforms, the right people, processes, talent, etc. Last year, their sales grew exponentially. In some cases up to 40%. Those clients were also able to take advantage of whole new audiences that they didn't know before, didn't have data on before, and are really able to make smart investment decisions at a time where every yen counts. Yes, I do. KDDI, one of Japan's largest telcos, and some of the work that we've partnered with them on has really set them up very well to create a whole new customer experience in a virtual world, a virtual Shibuya here in Tokyo, allowing consumers to sort of connect together and actually create new business models for that client. So let's have a look at what we've done for them specifically around the moment of Halloween.
As one of the liveliest and most iconic neighborhoods in Tokyo, Shibuya has become the center of Japan's biggest Halloween gatherings, attracting tens of thousands of visitors in 2019. But 2020 would be different. As the coronavirus surged, Halloween in Shibuya was forced to go quiet. So while the city was all but shut down, Shibuya partnered with au, one of Japan's biggest telecoms, to build, block by block, Shibuya's virtual Halloween, a space that would hold the kind of Halloween event the physical city couldn't. By creating avatars, anyone could attend the live performances, featuring some of Japan's biggest music and TV characters and personalities, creating an entirely new way to experience an event, while also allowing those attending to interact in real time. Over 400,000 created personal avatars and visited Shibuya's virtual Halloween, many times the number visiting Shibuya the year before. And the event was covered by every major news channel, gaining media exposure worth over $20 million.
渋谷バーチャルハロウィーン。バーチャル渋谷。バーチャル渋谷。バーチャル渋谷。これバーチャルなんですね。本物じゃない。逆にコミュニケーションが取れるのも楽しいなと思いますね。参加したいと思う人いますか？はい。
Shibuya's virtual Halloween expanded the possibilities of events and entertainment, as au and Shibuya City demonstrated how a virtual Halloween just may be able to out-trick-or-treat a physical one.
One of the key aspects that we need to look at is feeling more committed to the local environment, both culturally and just from a messaging standpoint. If we look at IBM, for instance, IBM's been here since actually 1925. I just recently knew that they would be here almost 100 years. They used to be making these tabulation machines back then. But not until recently have they really been committed to making sure that the Japanese feel like they're not this foreign American company. You know, IBM is just so American. So it's a little bit off-putting for a lot of Japanese local companies to partner with from a B2B perspective. Recently, one of the big issues that Japan has been facing is the aging dilemma. You know, if you look at the usual pyramid, it's inverted to where 65 and over is nearly 30% of the country now. And so that causes all kinds of challenges for Japan. And so IBM, wanting to push their Watson and AI prowess, found a way to sort of use that prowess in a purpose-driven way, which was finding solutions for this aging process. Yeah, specifically, with so many people over 65 having to retire, we were looking for ways that we could still make them feel productive in those 20 or 30 years that they still have to live, because the length of life here is really into the 80s and 90s. So we put together a plan where we can use occupational data and we can cross-reference that with personality data of the seniors to find a purpose for them after retirement. We call this Second Life, and maybe we can take a look at that.
Japan now has the world's most aged population, with more than 1 in 4 citizens over 65. And with a life expectancy of 85, retirees are looking at 20 or often 30 years feeling lonely and unproductive. Meet 84-year-old Masako. She spent her 40-year career as a bank clerk, but in retirement, she came to realize her biggest passion was in tech. So she bought a computer, created an online community, even coded an online game for seniors, and drew worldwide attention. We worked with Masako to help others connect with an unrecognized ability through Second Life.
簡単な質問に答えるだけで
AI 人工知能が自分に合った職業を
提案するサービスが始まることになりました。
我々の技術で今までできなかったことをできるようにする。
After collecting data from thousands of professional profiles, including specific occupational character traits, we built an AI program seniors can easily interact with at a community center, recruitment office, or online through a simple conversation with Watson. Specific answers, along with words chosen, voice intonation, even verbal expressions, are analyzed and filtered through diagnostic multivariables using Watson's personality insight recognition. This data is then cross-referenced with the occupational traits to search for a non-linear match, which sometimes surprises, but most often feels like a natural fit, thanks to Watson's deep cognitive analyzing abilities.
全く自分の想像もつかない答えが出てくるってね、手話通訳してなんか考えたこともなかったし、すごく面白いな。
IBM's Second Life is giving seniors a second chance at finding new ways to feel productive and enjoy all that lies ahead.
沈んでいく太陽を沈ませないようにしよう。これは無理だと思うんですね。沈んでいくっていうことの素晴らしさも感じながら老後を楽しんでいければいいなと思ってます。
I think local brands and just Japan in general has a very special aesthetic to it. I mean, if you look at Tokyo as a city, it's a little bit ugly actually on a mass scale. The buildings aren't nearly as special as other cities. There's no beautiful beach. But then you look under the hood just a little bit and there's beautiful little gems nearly everywhere. You take a little walk down an alley and you'll just be blown away by maybe the logo of a hairstylist, which is way too nice for a simple hairstylist. And they're just these little temples off here and off there, or little rock gardens. And you just realize that there's so much beauty that's uniquely Japanese. And I think some of the work that we try to bring to Japan has to take that into consideration. So one of the campaigns that we've recently worked on was actually a Japanese product that was going overseas. But I think what was important about it was the aesthetics that we put into this campaign, because we were trying to convince people to eat sushi in another country, but have it be authentic Japanese sushi. So we wanted to really transport not just the sushi, the fish itself, but the experience and the aesthetics of Japan. We called this 88 Reasons. It was for a part of the Japanese government called J-Fudo, and the campaign was called 88 Reasons, and you'll see the beauty that we put into it.
Everybody is going onto digital platforms, and we haven't really seen that before. So what we see is Amazon Prime member numbers have increased exponentially, and this isn't just for Japan, it's I think globally as well. Rakuten members have increased a lot in the last year as well. So what we see is they're shopping for their daily needs, obviously through those kind of mega digital outlets or shopping experiences, but when it comes to the event experience or creating a memory with friends and family, they're doing it through social a lot more, right? So what we're also seeing is numbers increasing on Instagram. Not many people have been really using Instagram in Japan, even though globally it's a mega platform. But in the last year, Instagram members have increased, TikTok has increased, YouTube has increased, but that's not really a social media platform. It's more of a digital entertainment platform. But we see a lot more interaction on especially Instagram stories. This is a way to connect on a daily basis and not clutter your feed, right? So creating memories is still going to be in your feed, for example, but with stories, it's more of a communication tool now rather than just showcasing who you are, which is the main purpose of Instagram. So the needs have shifted dramatically on social platforms as well and how they use them on a daily basis. And then the expectations from social platforms as well, right? It's no longer just you showcasing who you are, but how can I use this as a way to communicate with others, stay in touch with others, even though you're miles apart. So we're kind of in this, I don't like to call them silos, but little cocoons, right? It's warm, you feel safe, it's the people that you know, the things that you're familiar with, the things that you love, you're constantly surrounded by. So when you go out of your cocoon, you feel uncomfortable a lot more, but in order to go out of that cocoon, one of the things that we're seeing is purpose-driven kind of marketing really helping consumers do that. So one thing we see a lot around, especially the Z generation, the younger generation, is that sustainability is a big part of their lives now, and they're really bringing that into their cocoon a lot more, but it's something new that they've never really touched before. It's when we talk about sustainability too, it's not about just, don't use plastic or, don't cut down trees. It's more around the products that you purchase really reflect who you are as a person as well. Of course, there's a fashionable component that the Z generation loves about sustainability, but there is a deeper level of connection there with the product or the brand that they're purchasing when sustainability is part of their purchase experience. So personalization, there's one trend that's happening, especially around girls right now, is personalized shampoos. So what you do is you create your own shampoo, you create your own with the ingredients that you like, the smell that you like, the color that you like, and you can even customize your own bottle with a name or a label that you want, right? So these are things that personal touches that make your day a lot more exciting, make your day a lot more uplifting by just having something more personal, right? Another thing that's really trending a lot more is subscriptions. So in Japan, this is really kicking off now. And when we say subscriptions, it's not just a music service or a movie streaming service like a Netflix, much more personalized, catered subscriptions. So there's one business model that I found quite interesting is every month you get a package with a pack of coffee and a novel. So it comes in a box with a little note explaining why the two kind of fit together. So you get this overall kind of rounded experience. It's not just the product, it's the atmosphere, and the vibe you get from drinking the coffee and reading the novel together. So these are kind of the things that we're seeing a lot more. So that's definitely going to accelerate with the Z generation becoming kind of business owners as well in the next couple of years.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found it informative. We've certainly enjoyed taking you through some of our thoughts. And if you need any follow-up or are interested in any further information, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at Geometry Ogilvy Japan. Thanks again.
Well, thank you all very much indeed. To celebrate this very special launch, we've created a very special app. It's a virtual reality experience where you can literally visit every single country that's featured in the 2021 study? Well, you can get it on your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, your mobile phone. All you need to do is just download it from the URL that's on the screen here. Enjoy, explore. It's full of interest and insights, and we'll be refreshing the content frequently over the course of the next few months. So please do go back frequently. Earlier, I talked about the significance of countries being seen as brands. This is being increasingly realised right across the world, not just by business leaders, but by governments at the most senior of levels. I caught up with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands and asked him how important he believes country brands are.
Mr. Prime Minister, what contribution do you think that retailing makes to the economy and society in general?
So many. I mean, it is the biggest employer in the Netherlands. 900,000 people are somehow connected to the retail sector, so it is huge in its economic impact. That means that many people, in many cases young people, start their working life experiences in the retail sector. It is also a place where you can learn how to be more entrepreneurial and how to start your own business. It is a sector in our economy which is very much focused on innovation and disruptive innovation. It is very much connected to the modern economy, to the internet, to online shopping. So there are so many positives. And it's also a place where people come together. It's also a sort of community place. In some of the stores, people drink a cup of coffee, meet friends, and then buy some stuff. So it has many, many impacts on society.
Mr. Prime Minister, you had a fantastic career at Unilever. You obviously know brands very well. Do you think country brands are as important as product brands?
Oh, they're crucial. And what I found in this job is that the brand of Amsterdam, the brand of the Netherlands, the brand of Eindhoven, or the whole commercial area around cities like Zwolle and Amersfoort are crucial for our international standing. And the fact that you can bike to school as a child, that it's relatively safe here, that there are so many possibilities when you like sports or culture. And I really learned to brand that much more than we did already.
One last question, Mr. Prime Minister. What advice would you give retailers today who are under a lot of pressure, under a lot of stress? Everything's changing very fast.
Yeah, but still, at the same time, you are in a fascinating sector. So enjoy what you are doing. We live only once. This is the real thing. This is not the. So you have to make the best of it. And there are so many opportunities for good salespeople, for good businessmen and women, to make use of all those opportunities which are out there. And do realize that you play a very important part in societies. You are really part of society.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, I can't believe it. We've come to the end of our broadcast. We're almost out of time. I'd like to thank everybody who participated in today's broadcast. And just to remind you again, please do download the app and enjoy going virtually into every single one of our countries in this year's 2021 Best Countries Study. So from me, David Roth, thank you very much indeed. And Mike, thank you very much indeed as well.
My pleasure. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Well, have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We really appreciate it.
す。